Hello there, thanks for tuning in to today's edition of the show. This is China Now, the only show dedicated to providing the world with an overview of today's China. On this show, we seek to help you learn and understand the ins and outs of China, how it operates and how it views itself and the rest of the world. The show is in many folds, but as usual, we'll start off with the very first segment, China Current, the part of the show that not only focuses on bringing closer to you the most topical stories making headways in China at the moment, but also breaks them down for you to help you understand why things happen, how they happen, and what they mean on the international front. So, on today's edition of China Current, Chris will be discussing with you the issue of user data privacy policy in relation to TikTok, an app that I'm sure most of you are already hooked on. So, in recent times, the app and its CEO, Mr. Chu Zhuzi, has been in the news following his appearance before the US Congress to discuss some very interesting issues in relation to the existence of TikTok in the United States of America. So, what may have necessitated this meeting? Why has a TikTok CEO been trending since that question and answer session in the US Congress? And why does the app face the possibility of being banned in the United States of America? Well, I don't have the answers to these questions, but Chris does on today's segment of China Current. So stick and stay with us for all the explanations you need. Over to you, Chris.
China Current is a weekly news talk show from China to the world. We cover viral news about China every week and also give you the newest updates on China's cutting-edge technologies. Let's get started. Hi, welcome to China Currents. I'm Chris. For younger folks who live on TikTok, it's impossible to miss a new genre called Mr. Chu, which mainly consists of curated clips of or reaction videos to TikTok CEO Chu Shouzi politely answering questions in US Congress. Here in China, many social media users find a 40-year-old tech executive of Chinese descent good-looking, well-spoken, and sexually attractive. Don't ask me why I know it. There are tons of thirst trap memes about him out there. But I think the most admirable part of Mr. Chu is his impeccable manner. Manner maketh man. Just imagine yourself keeping a straight face, sitting through questions like this. If I have a TikTok app on my phone and my phone is connected to my home Wi-Fi network, does TikTok access that network? What? TikTok is not a single-player game. Of course it needs internet connection. If you don't give it access, why would you install it? Well, in theory, if you just find its logo aesthetically pleasing but its content abhorrent, then disable the connection, just keep the icon. Problem solved. You're welcome. But there it goes again. Is it possible then that it could access other devices on that home Wi-Fi network? Now I see what it's getting at. Apparently, if TikTok gains access to a network that has multiple devices connected to it, then it will take over control of those hardwares, including home appliances, so that you can never turn off your aircon and freeze to death. But wait, Americans don't turn off their aircons anyway. And there's more. Your smartphones and security cameras will publish your bedroom adventures, or somehow steal your personal data, or even biometrics. I should have known better. No wonder politicians care so much about biometrics. You know, older men tend to have size anxiety issue. And even worse, TikTok could be sending such private, sensitive information to the big brothers in Beijing. And they'll go, look at America's national secret. So average. Don't laugh. I mean, this is serious. Don't let off TikTok that easily. It's a Chinese app, for goodness sake. Don't you ever give it Wi-Fi access. But more importantly, you should never use it on cellular data. That way, you take hostage of America's telecom network. Maybe even the power grid. Who knows? But it will never hurt to be more cautious. By the same logic, legislators should demand major cell phone manufacturers not to include flight mode on phones exported to the Middle East. Because if they fall into the wrong hands, and when they get connected to in-flight Wi-Fi, terrorists would take control of American airliners. Never let that happen. Well, enough joking, but do you really think the congressman didn't know that America's homegrown tech giants are equally, if not more intrusive on user privacy? Yes, they are bad guys, but they're our bad guys. You think they didn't know that TikTok is trying everything they can to distance itself from China? Like a second-generation immigrant eager to assimilate by proving his non-Chineseness? It doesn't want to have anything to do with us. Mr. Chu was like, "Can't you see? I'm Singaporean. TikTok is based in Singapore and LA. It's not a Chinese company, but a global minus China company. You can't even access TikTok in China, no matter how good your Wi-Fi network is. And no foreign government, including China's, will have any access to US user data. There's something called Project Access to ensure American data is stored on American soil by American company, overseen by American personnel." You think they didn't know that? They knew. They knew. I don't know what was on Mr. Chu's mind during his long 5 hours he was grilled by US lawmakers, but he must realize that TikTok will have a hard time chewing his piece of American pie if he doesn't follow orders to take out the Chinese part of it. Some people say TikTok should hire a white man as CEO because that's the face of a truly global company. But others say it will never be white enough to be accepted because they judge not only by the color of your skin, but also by the color of your parents' skin. For them, there's no way to trust TikTok with the Abide by American laws because it's a Chinese parent company, ByteDance, operating from the evil communist regime that is China. Do you think they would have a problem with TikTok if ByteDance is a British, Canadian, or Australian company? Actually, they would if any of those countries are big enough to threaten America's dominance. So suck it up, yo, TikTok. Welcome to the Warring States period. Well, in this deeply uncertain time, one thing is for sure, which is the generosity of the US government in providing free online education. We all have learned a valuable lesson about the rule of law by watching a circus show from afar. They could have taken TikTok by force. Just rob it. No one dares to say anything. But they chose to host a meeting first and ask questions in a civilized manner. Shining city, beacon of hope. I say take it if you want it so bad, but be warned that TikTok is murderous. It kills time. In Andy Warhol's days, everybody was said to have 15 minutes of fame. TikTok, TikTok. Now you have only 50 seconds. The social media generation has extremely short attention span for most stuff. But there are exceptions people will never get tired of talking about. The former US President Donald Trump is such an evergreen internet celebrity. He may have stepped down, but he never retires from people's minds. He recently prophesied his own arrest, and immediately fake images of him being gang-tackled by police began flooding social media. Just as people laughed off these pictures and said, "I only wish." A New York grand jury has really decided to indict him over hush money payments to porn stars. This makes a historic first for an ex-president. As of now, it's not clear whether Trump will actually go to jail, but Chinese internet users are already having fun making up stories about him coming out of jail and spend his twilight years peacefully in his hometown in China. Don't believe it? Look at his photo evidence of old Donald playing chess, practicing Tai Chi, shopping for groceries, and dancing in public squares. He looks exactly like a grandpa from a Shanghai neighborhood. Who could have thought he used to be the most powerful man in the world? However, all fake pictures are not the same. Outside China, there's an element of schadenfreude for many on the liberal left poking fun at Trump. But here in China, netizens regard him not as a disgraced president, but an unsung hero, working undercover in an enemy state's heart of power. Think about his China policies, trade war, sanction and stuff, and their outcomes. He forced China to buy more cheap American soybeans and natural gas ahead of food crisis and a war in Ukraine. He pressured Chinese capital to speculate less, thereby reducing its risk exposure so we are less impacted by the Silicon Valley Bank collapse. And he encouraged China to invest more, to build its own capability by restricting its access to American technology. Even in terms of rhetorics, we loved his rhetorics, the tougher the better, so that it won't blow his cover. The only problem we had was that it wasn't hard enough. He just couldn't contain his love for the motherland. Like a forlorn maiden can't hide affection toward her cheating lover. China is the thief. He stole my heart. But I don't blame him. He's so good, so smart. We love each other. I only blame my predecessors, his exes, for failing to make him an honest man. So basically, it was our guy in the White House. Ever wonder why he has a penchant for wearing red ties? That's a young pioneer's red scarf. We recognize it instantly. There's no way a billionaire would have zero interest in patching up a capitalism's overextended empire, but vows to take back control of the nation state from the globalist elite. Unless it was someone else. So, Comrade Trump, we only have one last mission for you. Come back alive. Well, thank you for watching this episode of China Currents. If you have any thoughts or comments on our show, please contact us at the email address below. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, Chris, for that very educative piece of information on the USA's issue with TikTok over its user data privacy policy. It's now time for us to head straight to Threshold, the segment of the show that gives you a taste of the future before it actually happens. On this show, Lisa will be discussing emerging technological innovations in China that have life-changing potential. Today's show will focus on the possibility or perhaps emergence of a shape-shifting robot and its impact in the near future. So stick and stay with Lisa as she gives you all the explanation you need about this emerging technological innovation. Lisa, please.
Hi, I'm Lisa. This is Threshold in China, a segment that gave you a taste of the future before it actually happens. I'm going to talk about emerging technologies that have life-changing potential and assess their ability to influence our life in the near future. The shape-shifting T-1000 robot in the Terminator franchise is probably one of the greatest movie villains of all time. One of the most memorable scenes from the movie is when it morphed its way around prison bars with a pistol in hand. Due to its liquid-solid nature, the robot was almost invincible. Somehow, the robot has become true. Take a look at this. A Lego-like tiny robot is locked in a prison. It finds the right angle and starts to heat itself up and melts into liquid form. After successfully escaping from the prison, it reinvented itself and restored the prototype, just like in the movie. Now let's take a look at this tiny shape-shifting robot to find out what's so special about it. The robot is made out of alloy microparticles, also known as magnetoactive phase transitional matter, MPTM. There are tiny little magnets that can morph its own shape, move quickly. It can also be controlled easily and carry many times its own weight. In its solid state, MPTM has high mechanical strength reaching as much as 1.98 gigapascals. It's like stacking 4 elephants on top of each other on a square inch of an area. The material also allowed the robot to jump up to 203 times its body length, moving up to 1.5 meters per second. Pretty amazing. In its liquid state, it can elongate, split, and merge, exactly like the T-1000. Its shape-shifting ability can be controlled by external stimuli, such as a change in the strength of magnetic field. The change will cause the microparticle to accumulate at one end while stretching out on the other. This allows for shape reconfiguration without any permanent damage or deformation. Because MPTM's composite material has a melting point close to room temperature, when the team uses a different magnetic field, electrons in the liquid metal form current, and these currents flowing through the robot's body heat it up and eventually melt it. Once transformed into liquid metal, the robot could be stirred through the narrow gaps of its locked cage by more magnets. After natural cooling, the liquefied robot turns back into a solid. Actually, instead of T-1000, the scientists were inspired by nature, sea cucumbers. The slug-like sea creature have the ability to change the texture of their body from stiff to soft and back again. It's like having a piece of rubber that can be made firm or soft depending on circumstances. Sea cucumbers have the special type of protein inside called collagenous microfibrils. When they want to be stiff, the protein packs tightly together and stiffens itself like a piece of rubber that can be squeezed. When the situation requires themselves to be soft, like when they need to escape from a predator, for example, the proteins spread apart and the body becomes more fluid-like, so it's harder for the predator to hold on to. And this inspired scientists to explore similar strategy using a variety of materials. Magnetic microparticles aren't the only candidate though. Previous studies by other researchers had tried other materials with varying degrees of success. However, some materials have limited morphological adaptability due to their quasi-solid character. By that, I mean the ability of it to change the shape or form in response to external factors such as pressure or temperature. For example, a liquid can easily change its shape and fit into a container of any size, but whereas a solid is fixed and it cannot be changed that easily. Other materials the scientists tested out were liquid or paste-like, but they lacked the mechanical strength which limited their load capacity, resulting in poor controllability and slowed their speed. So this made the current research stand out. Magnetic microparticles they choose combine fast locomotion, high mechanical strength, and versatile morphological adaptability to an unprecedented degree. The material can easily switch between rigid and fluid state through the alternating magnetic field combined with ambient cooling. It also opens a world of possibility once unthinkable for traditional materials, for applications such as flexible electronics, robotics, and healthcare. A robot made from the material could be deployed to fix electronics in places that are difficult to reach, for example working as a makeshift screw to fit into holes of whatever size and shape, or being used as a soldering material that can automatically form a circuit and light up a bulb. In one experiment, researchers showcased how a robot could work inside a model of human stomach by removing an unwanted foreign object. Scientists stirred the solid foam robot, measuring about 1 centimeter in width, through the fake organ until it had located the foreign object. It was then melted by a remotely controlled magnetic field, stretched in this new liquid metal state around the object, and once securely hugging it, cooled back into a solid, allowing it to take the foreign object out of the chamber. The vivid demonstration is just one of the many potential applications in healthcare. The robot could turn out to be a powerful tool for many kinds of surgery. The researchers led by Wang Qingyuan of Sun Yat-sen University have already set their next goal, to make a liquid metal robot that can get its energy by devouring aluminium flakes. Basically, it would look like a robotic amoeba and eat like one. The tiny little robot might be underwhelming for their appearance, but just imagine millions of these tiny robot amoeba live inside the body of a giant robot and provide energy to a host by digesting material for it. So how good is it according to the standards of our rating system? Well, let's move on to a threshold rating system: readiness, novelty, and potential impact or rippleness. The readiness category refers to the maturity of a technology from lab demonstration, that's 1, to mass production, that's 5. The novelty scores refer to how new the innovation is. 1 means small differentiation to existing technology, and 5 means the innovation fulfills a new function. Finally, the ripple scale is our opinion of a technology's potential for life-changing impact and how widely it can be applied elsewhere. How does this shape-shifting robot stack up? The mass production of robots made of this kind of microparticles won't be particularly challenging, as similar materials have been used in motors and generators in various industries such as automotive, aerospace, and renewable energy. The manufacturing technique of the material could be rather matured, although producing robots with it would be different. I would say the readiness of this robotic technology for the market is likely very high, above 4 perhaps. Similarly, the level of novelty is also very high. Not long ago, this kind of robot is still considered to belong into the realm of science fiction. So here again, it gets a 4. Finally, the ripples. It all depends on the application and unit cost. The only thing to limit its potential application would be the boundary of our imagination. On the other hand, the specific cost of each product will depend on the design and specification of the product, as well as the cost of the raw material and the efficiency of the production process, the productivity I mean. For all these reasons, it is a 3. And that would push it beyond the threshold of our standards. Imagine having a widely commoditized alloy particles that can become any object when it's needed at any time of use, instantly reshape, reuse, and stored away without having to go through any sort of recycling facility. What this could mean to our concept of reuse, reduce, and recycle. Well, let's take an example of someone repairing a car or whatever. All she has to carry around is one reshaping device to form all the tool needed to get the job done. On a more personal level, you never have to worry about losing a specific socket or a unique shaped screwdriver. What other use can you make of this technology? What impact would it bring to the industry that you are in? We look forward to your thoughts as usual. In the meantime, be careful next time a familiar-looking person approaches you and tells you,
Say, that's a nice bike.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for taking time to explain to us this emergent technological innovation. It's super exciting to know what the future holds with all these technological innovations. But it's now time for the Thinkers Forum, where we'll have our thinkers and scholars sharing with us all the knowledge that they have about China and the rest of the world. Let's take a listen to this submission by Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr. on Pan-Africanism and the world today. Stay tuned.
Comrades and friends, I'm supposed to start a discussion on Pan-Africanism and end up in a conjecture. Comrades and friends, many years ago, hundreds of years ago, some people who were not on the African continent, some people who lived in Europe, decided to convene a meeting in Bonn, Germany. And they sat around a very long table. They put the map of Africa in front of them, and they drew out pencils like swords and began to divide Africa into what has become African countries today. That exercise was clearly not in the influence of the African people. That exercise was not dictated by the African people. That exercise was for the European powers at that time to divide our continent into their spheres of influence. Comrades, it's important sometimes to look at the current situation of Africa. I come from Ghana in West Africa, and we share borders with 3 other countries. And what happens on all of our borders clearly indicates the harm that colonial exploitation has done to the African people. If you go to the Ghana-Togo border, you will find one house. The kitchen is in Ghana and the bathroom is in Togo. Clearly indicating that those who drew the maps did not take our interest into consideration. If you go on the border with La Côte d'Ivoire, you find one ethnic group, the Nzima people. Their chief lives in Ghana, the population lives in La Côte d'Ivoire. This is the legacy of the exploitative madness of the European powers. This is the legacy which today imposes many problems on the African people. In 1452, the Pope, the head of the Catholic Church, signed an agreement with King Alfonso of Portugal, the King of Portugal. What was the content of this agreement? The Pope authorized King Alfonso to send missions around the world, especially in Africa, to spread Christianity, and that those who refuse to accept Christianity should be killed, executed. Their properties should be seized, and their properties included their wives, and so on. This set the tone for the madness which today has resulted in the impoverishment of the African people and the underdevelopment of many parts of the world. And it's important to note that sanctimonious religion today, which pretends to be so sanctimonious, is at the bottom of this journey of exploitation, which began with the papal bull signed by the Pope, and which gave this authority to King Alfonso of Portugal. That is one mark we should keep in mind. The other landmark we should keep in mind is that it is our labor, it is our labor which led to the accumulation of capital, leading to the development of capitalism in the United States of America, Britain, everywhere. It is us who were used as beasts of burden to produce the cotton, to work the sugarcane fields, to design their houses and so on. We developed the basis of capitalism today. Our exploitation served as the basis for capitalism today. Now, comrades and friends, all of this, our exploitation, our oppression, our dehumanization and so on, led to intense struggle. Our people resisted those who came to capture us as beasts of burden, as slaves. We fought wars, but we lost. And we didn't lose because we were inferior. We lost because we were concentrating on the development of agriculture. We were concentrating on the development of architecture. We were concentrating on how to live in harmony with our environment, when they were concentrating on developing weapons of destruction, on developing the rifle, on developing the gunpowder, and so on. So we did not lose because of our inferiority. We lost because of our very, very, very high standards of humanity. Now, we were captured as beasts of burden. We were shipped all over the world to work the fields in order to develop capital. But the resistance continued. And you all perhaps do know about the resistance which was led by Toussaint Louverture, who defeated the French army under one of the best generals of France, Napoleon Bonaparte, to establish the modern Republic of Haiti. You do know that Haiti was established by a slave, an escaped slave, African slave, who mobilized his forces, who fought the forces of France and defeated them in battle to establish the modern Republic of Haiti. So we fought. That resistance found expression in many forms. There was the Back to Africa movement, which had been supported by Marcus Garvey and others. There were those who believed that we should come back to Africa and develop Africa and so on. There were those who believed in staying in the United States, in staying in the Caribbean, in being accepted as citizens of the world so that we could contribute to build new civilizations and so on. There was the anti-racist battles. And you know, today, in modern times, some of those who have contributed significantly to this anti-racist battles. So many names. The Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and several others. So these battles have been going on broadly at some point under the banner of the Pan-African movement, Pan-Africanism. It was in 1945 that the leaders of the Pan-African movement worldwide decided to call a congress in Manchester, the United Kingdom. At the end of their deliberations, the Pan-Africanists then decided that the way forward laid in a vigorous struggle against colonialism. It laid in the waging of a national liberation struggle. And after the defeat of colonialism, we needed to unite Africa under the banner of scientific socialism. So for those of us who are on the left and who believe in Pan-Africanism, the resolution of the Manchester Conference served as our blueprint for our march forward into freedom and prosperity. Now, comrades and friends, from 1945 to 1951, the Pan-African movement concentrated its efforts on the liberation of Ghana from the yoke of colonialism. And in 1951, we scored our first major victory in the struggle for independence. Ghana under Kwame Nkrumah became partially independent. That struggle continued until on March 6, 1957, Ghana became also partially independent, and Ghana became a republic in 1960, 1st July 1960. It is significant to note that Ghana under Nkrumah became the vanguard of the independence struggle, not just in Ghana, but throughout the world. And it is significant also to recall that on the eve of independence, Kwame Nkrumah declared that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked with the total liberation of the African continent. That is a significant internationalist proclamation. Very significant internationalist proclamation. Many people had died in our struggle. We had suffered pain and misery in the struggle. And then on the eve of the victory, the leader of our struggle looks the world in the face and says that our victory is useless. That our victory is useless unless it is linked to the total liberation of the African continent. Indeed, Kwame Nkrumah has been described as a visionary, but I think that he's more than a visionary. The conditions in Africa today clearly suggest that if we do not unite, and if we do not unite under the banner of socialism, perhaps what happened in the past will be a walk in the flower garden. Why do I say so? Today, as we speak in this hall, Ghana is the 5th largest producer of gold in the world. And all of you know the value of gold. In fact, in the not too distant future, your currency was as strong as the quantity of gold you had to back it. And Ghana is a proud producer, is the 5th largest producer of gold in the world. In fact, the 2nd largest in the whole of Africa. How come that the Ghanaian people are so very poor? That's an important question to answer. Because in that answer, we shall find the solution to our problems and we shall understand the causes of our problems much more. Only recently, the former managing director of one of the largest gold mines in the world, Anglo Gold Ashanti, granted an interview to the Ghanaian media in which he said that Ghana has no interest, no shares in Anglo Gold Ashanti operating in Ghana. Our shares in Anglo Gold Ashanti today, 0%. 0%. We own the mines. The mine is being run by a multinational corporation. And our shares, 0%. How can you develop? How can you fight poverty? That's the crux of the matter. Comrades, the official estimate is that only 2%, 2 out of 100, 2% of the value of gold that is exported from Ghana comes back into the Ghanaian economy. 98% does not come back into the Ghanaian economy. 98% rest in banks in New York, Washington, and so on. Why would we not have a debt crisis? Why would we not be poor? And so on. Comrades, it gets worse. There's a phenomenon which has now been described as the race to the bottom. What is that phenomenon? These giant multinational corporations come and they go to South Africa. And they meet the South African authorities and say, look, we are ready to invest capital in Africa. But capital will go to the places where we have the most favorable conditions. So we want tax holidays. And then the South Africans say that, okay, we agree. We want your capital, and therefore we give you 2 years tax holiday. When they get the 2 years tax holiday, they put it in their back pocket, and they run to Guinea. And they tell the Guinean authorities, this is what the South Africans did we have to do better than the South Africans so we can bring our investments to Guinea. Guinea then says, we give you 4 years tax holiday. They say, okay. And then they go to Mali. They repeat the same ritual and they get 6 years tax holiday and they come to Ghana. Of course, you know what the new colonial regime in Ghana would do. I don't have to say it. So we are racing to the bottom. And we are racing to the bottom because we are not united. If Africa was united, Africa would be negotiating as one strong force. Not 56 countries, not 54 countries, and not 58 countries. And that gives us an advantage. This is the common sense why African people ought to come together and act together and deal with the world as one strong, united force. Comrades and friends, I come from Ghana. All the 16 regions of Ghana have favorable conditions for the cultivation of rice. All the 16 regions of Ghana. And yet, Ghana is one of the largest importers of rice. Ghana is crisscrossed by all kinds of rivers. We are bordered on the south by the Atlantic Ocean. And yet, Ghana is one of the largest importers of fish in the world. Ghana is a tropical country, has abundant rainfall and fertile lands. And yet, Ghana is the 3rd largest importer of tomato paste from Germany. This is our tragedy. This is our tragedy. Comrades, I'm sure that all of us have followed the war in Ukraine. And I'm sure that all of us have heard the nonsense that is repeated every day about the war in Ukraine. And one of the most foolish things that our leaders repeat, they tell us in the face, is that, look, we are suffering as a result of the war in Ukraine. We are not going to get food to eat because of the war in Ukraine. How stupid can these leaders be? How stupid can they be? We can grow food all year round. And if we have the conditions to grow food all year round and Ukraine cannot, how did we become dependent on food production from Ukraine? Comrades, Africa today has 70% of the arable lands in the world. 70%, Africa alone. How did we become dependent on food supplies from Ukraine? This is the sad story of our history of oppression and exploitation. But most importantly, it is the sad story of our miseducation and misdirection. What are the first songs that our children learn to sing when they go to nursery school? I sang it. My grandchildren are singing the same song today. Something is wrong. And what is that song? London's burning, look who yonder, fire, fire, no water. Our grandchildren are singing about London burning for God's sake. That is the miseducation. We are still singing about London burning. We are still composing songs about the elegance of Queen Elizabeth. That is a tragedy. That is a tragedy. Today, in my country, we are told that we are in a debt crisis. We are told that we are in a debt crisis. Our country has become completely bankrupt. We are told that we need 120%. 100 is all. But we need 120% of total national revenue to pay for 3 line items: debt repayment, debt servicing, and public sector emoluments. No country can survive under these conditions. But how did we get here? How did we get here? Is it just reckless borrowing? No. How did we get here? Next time when I come, I'll carry one book titled Africa Must Unite, a book which was authored by Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of the Republic of Ghana. And in that book, Nkrumah makes the point that Africa has 52% of the total resources of the world. How come that the people who are 52% of the total resources of the world are so very poor? There must be an explanation. And the explanation, short code, is simply that we do not own these resources, even though these resources are embedded in our soil. And that these resources, when they're exploited, are not exploited for the benefit of our people. This paradigm of development ought to change. If the African people are to stand up proudly, if the African people are to be able to fight under development in all its expressions, if the African people are to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with their friends across the world and to build that new world without hunger, that new world which is fighting disease, that new world which is guided by the principles of democracy and mass participation in decision making. So, if we are to do that, then we ought to change this paradigm of development, which takes everything from us and gives us nothing. Comrades and friends, we don't have enough time, and I want to end. But before I end, let me pay tribute to the very significant friendship between our peoples and the people of China. That friendship, which found expression in the personal bond between Kwame Nkrumah and Prime Minister Zhou Enlai of China. If we are to move forward as a people, whether we are Chinese or Ghanaians, it is important for us to take a few steps back into history and to rekindle that friendship which is based on a genuine aspiration to develop a new world, which is based, that friendship which is true, that friendship which is not exploitative, that friendship which recognizes that we are all part of a common humanity and will progress or falter together. There's a fact that nobody can ignore, and that fact is whether we are Chinese, Americans, Japanese, Koreans, or Africans, we live on the same planet. And if we destroy this planet, all of us will suffer the consequences of the destruction of our planet. We are having this conversation at a time when the possibility of a thermonuclear war is looming. We have been foolish enough. We, the people of this world, have been foolish enough to develop the capacity to destroy the world, not once, not twice, not thrice, but 10 times over. As if one destruction is not enough. We are so foolish that we are acting as if one destruction of this globe is not enough. We are building the capacity to destroy this globe 10 times over and more. What kind of people are we? Is it possible to build a world without a bomb? Should we build a world without a bomb? What kind of world should we build? And I'd like to submit that we need to build that world in which no child will go to bed on an empty stomach. That should be our commitment. Our commitment should be to build that world in which nobody is denied access to medical care. Our commitment should be to build that new world in which we are not competitors, in which we are all citizens on the globe and working for the realization of the full human potential of all human beings. That world is possible. That world must be built. That is our commitment, and I'd like to thank all of you for listening to me, and I'd like to thank you even more profusely for establishing this institution, which brings people together to discuss, to think, and to find a way forward in this mad world of crazy leaders, this mad world in which the forces of imperialism have become so reckless that they work for their own destruction. Thank you, my comrades. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to the show. I hope you had a great time as always, and you have been adequately informed and educated as well. But here is where we draw the curtains on today's edition of China Now. If you have any feedback or suggestions for us in the coming episodes of the show, please do not hesitate to reach out to us through the email provided below. Hoping to hear from you soon, but until then, it's goodbye from myself and the rest of the team.